Most crisis plans fail long before the crisis begins. Not because of technology, not because of missing protocols, but because of human ego, fear, and the quiet politics nobody dares to mention in a boardroom.
And it may be due to some toxic work culture, lack of job satisfaction, workload-related issues, or no potential for growth.
We love to imagine we're prepared until reality calls our bluff. The truth? A crisis is a stress test for people, not paper. The myth of crisis readiness. In my 10+ years as a founder and HR leader, I've seen hundreds of crisis readiness plans. They look great on paper, they tick every compliance box, they even pass the occasional drill. But here's the secret. Most of them are theater. The problem is, real crises don't play out like rehearsals. They don't arrive at convenient times, they don't give you a warning email, and they never follow the script. Let me give you an example. Years ago, I worked with a company that prided itself on being crisis ready. They had a thick manual, updated annually. They'd even won an industry award for safety planning. Then a cyber attack hit, systems locked, emails down, customers angry. And suddenly, all that preparation meant nothing. Why? Because two department heads refused to share information. Not because they didn't care, but because they'd been competing for budget for years. The plan didn't fail, the people did. This is the uncomfortable truth. A crisis plan is only as strong as the trust inside your team. And trust isn't built during a crisis, it's built in the months and years before. Here's the myth. Companies believe that buying software, writing protocols, and doing an annual drill make them ready. The reality? Most crisis plans fail in the first 15 minutes, because the human factors were never considered. Why? Because we don't plan for people under stress. We don't account for panic, exhaustion, or the tiny rivalries that can suddenly matter a great deal when pressure mounts. In reality, crises bring out extremes in people. Some step up, some freeze, some even sabotage, consciously or unconsciously. If you're not factoring in those behaviors into your crisis planning, you're not planning for reality, you're planning for a fantasy. Before we discuss the tools, technology, and playbooks, we must confront the less tangible aspects of crisis readiness. The politics, pride, burnout, and human flaws that no spreadsheet can address. The human vices that sink crisis plans. When most people talk about crisis readiness, they focus on systems. But I've seen far more plans collapse because of people, and not always for the reasons you'd expect. 5 human vices show up like clockwork in a crisis, and they can turn even the most well-written plan into rubble. Some leaders believe that in a crisis, they alone must save the day. They hoard decisions. They delay delegating. They see themselves as the captain who must steer the ship, even as the ship is already taking on water. The truth? A good crisis leader builds other captains. One person cannot carry the weight of every decision without breaking. Some organizations run drills for the photo op, not for the reality check. They schedule them months in advance. Everyone knows it's coming. They pass the test, post the pictures on LinkedIn, and call themselves ready. But crises don't care about your schedule. Preparedness you can schedule is rarely the preparedness that can save you. This one is ugly, and it's more common than you think. In the middle of a crisis, some employees protect their turf, withhold key information, or stall cooperation. Not because they're villains, but because the crisis has made their rivalries, fears, or job security concerns feel bigger than the team's survival. A good crisis plan accounts for this by building cross-team trust before it matters. Never waste a good crisis. It's an unspoken rule in some circles, and a dangerous one. In the confusion, leaders sometimes push through unrelated agendas, restructuring, layoffs, policy changes. Some see it as efficiency, others see it as opportunism. Either way, it erodes trust, and without trust, your team won't follow you when it matters most. A crisis demands more from your people than any normal workday. But often, the same high performers are called on again and again, until they're running on fumes. Burnout doesn't just reduce productivity, it clouds judgment. And in a crisis, one bad decision can cost millions, or worse. These vices aren't rare, they're predictable. And that means you can plan for them, if you're willing to acknowledge they exist. A real crisis-ready plan doesn't just list emergency contacts and evacuation routes, it bakes human behavior into the blueprint. Because in the end, the biggest risk in a crisis isn't the crisis itself. It's the human reaction to it. Building a crisis-ready workforce that works. If crises expose our human flaws, they can also reveal our human strengths. The good news? Crisis readiness isn't a mysterious gift that some companies have and others don't. It's something you can design. If you build for people first, process second. In a crisis, rigid structures break. Agile teams bend and adapt. That means cross-training your people so they can shift roles when needed. It means replacing job silos with skill networks. Your accountant may not become a cybersecurity expert overnight, but if they understand the basics, they can bridge gaps when your IT lead is unreachable. Too many plans depend on one decision maker at the top. If they're unavailable or overwhelmed, everything stalls. A crisis-ready workforce has micro-leaders in every team, people empowered to act without asking permission every 5 minutes. That requires trust, and trust is built in the everyday moments before disaster ever strikes. Resilience isn't just grit. It's a culture where people can raise red flags without fear. It's where reporting a near miss is rewarded, not punished. When people feel psychologically safe, they'll surface small issues before they snowball into a crisis. Most crisis drills are predictable. Real crises aren't. That's why I use scenario storyboarding, mapping out impossible, even absurd situations to force creative thinking. The point isn't to prepare for an asteroid hitting your office. It's to build a team that can problem solve when the rules suddenly change. In high-pressure moments, people will face ethical gray zones. Do we protect the company's image or tell the truth immediately? Do we cut corners to save time or stick to the standard? A crisis-ready workforce trains for those moral decisions, not just the mechanical ones. This is what a living crisis plan looks like. Not a binder gathering dust, not a one-day drill, but a culture that adapts in real time, because it's built on the strengths and weaknesses of real people. Storm clouds parting over the skyline, people working calmly amid minor chaos. You can't predict the next crisis. You can predict how ready your people will be when it comes. If your crisis plan isn't built for human flaws, it's not a crisis plan. It's a fantasy. Build for trust, build for agility, build for resilience, because when the next storm hits, you won't have time to wish you had.